Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We're Team 4, and we're very excited to present our findings on location capital. To begin, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Cooper Norman, and this is Vishalway Garfield. Unfortunately, our third member couldn't make it today due to a personal matter, but he helped tremendously in our findings. To begin, we'll start about Spotswood's change in investment strategy. Spotswood violated many different standards when he changed the investment strategy from large cap dividend paying stocks to buying unquoted unlisted companies. Starting with standard 1A, violation of the law. While he did not violate the law directly, he violated the code of ethics through the CFA, and that is a violation. That is more of an implicit violation, as all of these are, but we will void 1A for the rest of the presentation. Next, we have standard 1C, misrepresentation. Spotswood omits the change in investment strategy to both his advisor and the investors themselves. So that is a violation because he cannot omit or misrepresent information according to standard 1C. Next, we have standard 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care. Spotswood doesn't show any care towards his investors when he does this. He just changes the investment strategy, and he doesn't let anyone know. So it's a violation of standard 3A. He showed no care to his investors. To continue on with that same one, we have Spotswood saying he didn't feel it was necessary to disclose his change in investment strategy, which is not really practical, but also that goes along with the first slide, and it is another violation of standard 5B and 5A. Starting with 5B, we have communication with clients and prospective clients. Spotswood violates this because he doesn't say anything. So that's a violation of that. He's supposed to disclose his investment processes. He did not do that whatsoever. Next is standard 5A, diligence and reasonable basis. Spotswood had no meaningful reason behind his change in investment strategy. He just did it because he felt he was a good stock picker and because of his reputation. As for solutions, we believe they should develop a better disclosure strategy. Maybe they could have a public announcement or just send an email or something like that. Or they could establish strict disclosure policies and recognize investor priorities better. Next, we have McBride's response, saying that he did not feel it necessary to say anything because of his outstanding reputation, which is ridiculous as a supervisor and shows much subjectivity towards Spotswood. Starting, it's a violation of standard 1B, independence and objectivity. He maintains no objectivity here. He just, based on his reputation, he just ignores it and doesn't look further into it. As well, it's a violation of standard 3A, loyalty, prudence, and care, because he shows no care towards his investors. He does not look further into it. He lets it happen. He just turns a blind eye. Next is standard 4A, loyalty to employer. Spotswood doesn't show any loyalty to his employer. This could go very badly, his change in investment strategy, and he doesn't tell anyone about the change. And if that went bad, it just does not show any employee interest or any interest in his employer. As for solutions, we believe they should implement supervision for all employees, no matter where they are in the hierarchy, as well as establish more codes of conduct and maybe do bias training. To continue on with that, we have one more, violation 4C, responsibility of supervisors. McBride doesn't really show any responsibilities as supervisor. He doesn't make sure that Spotswood's following any code of ethics. He turns a blind eye, and that's a violation of standard 4C because of that. As a solution, we think they should educate supervisors on compliance, regularly investigate conduct, as well as provide incentives like bonuses or maybe a promotion if supervisors do a good job. Next, we have Spotswood and the shares for assets swap to get past the 10% regulatory ceiling. Starting off, this is just plain illegal. It's a violation of standard 1A, and it actually violates the law. We found in Dodd-Frank Title 7, it just completely breaks that, as it just violates the Title 7, as you can see up there. And next we have standard 2B, market manipulation. They did not avoid misleading market practices whatsoever. Spotswood lists some of the unquoted companies in Leaf on the International Stock Exchange for regulatory evasion. Next is standard 3B, fair dealing. Spotswood doesn't show any fair treatment toward any of his investors whatsoever. He's doing illegal and unethical things behind the curtain. Next for that, we have standard 4C, responsibilities of supervisors. As you can see on the bottom, after he does all the illegal and unethical things, McBride says brilliant. And he does not look further into it whatsoever. He just praises the unethical conduct. As a solution, we believe they should have regular law and ethics training and work on transparent communication on strategic changes. Next, we have Spotswood and McBride about the fund closure. Spotswood's planning on closing the fund, and McBride suggests they keep it open just long enough so their largest client can withdraw their money. This is clear preferential treatment. They're letting their largest client withdraw money, even though he said he wanted to close the fund. Next, it's a violation of Standard 4C, responsibility of supervisors. McBride is encouraging this. As you can see in the quote, he says, "Great, I will tell Tank County." He doesn't look into it whatsoever. He's encouraging this unethical behavior. As solutions, we believe they should implement strong client disclosure procedures, along with regular checkups and reminders, as well as legalities and ethics training.
All right, thank you, Cooper. So to kind of go back into Standard 3 being the fair dealing problems, again, when you're looking at more cash flows, inflows and outflows, that's one factor in a multivariate analysis that should have been considered. And so again, with this partial treatment towards Tank County Fund for closing the gate, it doesn't allow other investors to respond appropriately. It's ultimately a violation of discrimination. And so given how the investors could respond to their money being gated, this could easily affect market prices and market value, which should be considered a material fact. And so again, some more solutions to this problem could have been to have more compliance procedures for fairness, to have developed systematic reviews to ensure fair treatment, and to organize the clientele list so that they know who their obligations are due towards. Standard 5A is another violation here with diligence and reasonable basis. So it was necessary for Spotswood to be diligent and to cover his bases. Many of his bases could have included his consultation with his research team, having research reports, and of course getting his client's opinions before making this big decision. The biggest thing, of course, was to apply professional judgment. Ultimately, we believe that he should have consulted more third-party research. So when you're doing this big decision to close the gate of fund and prevent other investors from getting their money, you should have used a multivariate analysis. You should have used more research reports, something that was measurable. It would have been good to use computer models so that the investors could have seen the trend in the fund so that everyone can have a really good understanding of what's exactly going on, and it would have been a group decision. It's also good to consider the size and capacity of the fund, as well as the size and capacity of the research team in making this big decision. When it comes to Newbridge and Sarah, who left their old firm, Sam, to come to Locandi, they ultimately decided to upload much of Sam's accounting statements as well as accounting statements from other financial institutions, which was outright plain illegal, and it first of all violated Standard 3E, the preservation of confidentiality. So in those 2 weeks that Sarah and Newbridge were asking their clientele which information are they allowed to upload, in the document it wasn't specified which documents that the clientele allowed, and so when they, for one, decided just to upload Sam's financial statements and accounting statements, they definitely risk violating policy for personally and financially. And of course, they did not have permission, as we'll later see in a later standard. Records are considered property of the firm, and so they're breaking federal law in that case. And so the client info must be protected from third parties. So in that 2-week period, they were still employees of SAM, and so when you're giving and preparing this information for Locandi, they were easily making a violation of it. And of course, with uploading anything to a cloud, there's that higher risk of password protecting. I believe Sarah did it at the end, and she should have done it at the very beginning, even though the whole thing was illegal, to ensure that everything was protected and the integrity was kept. And so when you look at Standard 4A as well with loyalty, because again in that 2-week period they were still working for the firm, and although they did not have to sign NDAs and non-competes, it was very pertinent for them to protect the interest of SAM despite that, and to not otherwise injure their market position and compromise their firm overall. And so there might have been existing policies for for SAM in this whole process with employee termination, and they should have been more aware of that. And overall, you shouldn't misuse confidential information to misappropriate clients. And lastly, Standard 5C record retention. You must maintain appropriate records for investment decisions, again, because records are property, and so you can't take the, lost consent. So solutions, get a legal advisor to avoid potential financial misabuse and disclose employee termination procedures, and regularly train employees in tech confidentiality, and develop strong internal reporting procedures. So when it comes to the issue with Fortescue trading back and forth here over that 12-month period, explicitly breaking Locandi's policy in their prospectus, Standard 1C misrepresentation was an obvious omission and failure, as they had an unwillingness to disclose this to the investors, because in the way that they interpreted the language in their own policy, they were saying that it should not affect individual investors and really thus affects the entire market as a whole. And so that was a big one. Standard 1D was also effective.
That's time.
Thank you.
We now have 5 minutes for the judges to ask you questions.
Did you guys address anything regarding New Bridge and Market filling in the blank count form?
With, not on the PowerPoint, but with the form, I believe that was an issue about, that was an issue of carelessness because they were trying to do everything in such a short amount of time. And so that issue, a good solution that we thought of, aside from this, was they were supposed to divvy up their responsibilities, because if you're just crunching for time and you don't have the appropriate papers to get the proper information, again, everything was unspecific as far as the documents that they got permission to use from the clientele, from Sam, but they should have divvied up their responsibilities and just made more organized schedules so that when they did give out those blank forms, or even a better form, they would have went more.
I believe in the first part regarding the strategy change, I think you suggested that, to informing the clients via email, it's sufficient. Don't you think, what if the new strategy is not suitable for, some of the clients?
That's true. I guess they could decline. I guess it could be more of a question saying like, do you want to change your strategy or something like that, rather than to match the investor's objectives, really. So I guess really it would be more of a question you could do.
Okay.
And again, also too, with like just getting this tech compliance training more up to date. There's a million and one different ways in addition to emails. Again, having an organized clientele list, whether you have to mail it in person, or you have to email it, or you have to have your system set up where you send these automatic emails when you make certain decisions in the company to ensure that everyone is, because timing isn't perfect. It's impossible to reach everyone on time at exactly the right time, but to kind of get close to that is cool.
Can you describe your analysis concerning Spotswood bypassing 10% rule?
Well, he used the shares for asset swap. It broke Dodd-Frank Title VII because Dodd-Frank Title VII explains that it should be two investors rather than it's just Spotswood himself going from his firm to it's just him. So it breaks Title VII, but he's doing that to get past the regulatory 10% ceiling by, I guess, masking his other shares with the unquoted shares.
And he's also not valuing the shares for the assets. There's no valuation going on between the two counterparties. And so Dodd-Frank specifies in Title VII they're supposed to have this form of procedure. And if one portfolio manager is just doing this on his own, you're obviously violating the procedures and of course
On top, just not even
informing
informing your clients. Guess what?
Might be important.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And from a standards and procedures, like ethics side of it, what violations, can you just kind of recapture what violations that you saw there with that 10% and the change between kind of the investment strategy that Spotswood had?
Okay, yeah. Well, the change in investment strategy, at first he was investing in large cap dividend paying stocks, and then he slowly started moving over. But the shares for asset swap, I think that's when he really started to get very unethical. And I guess he was just trying to get his own objectives over the client's objectives. He wasn't even thinking about any of the clients, what they wanted. So.
Do you have like any specific violations or like?
Oh, for the
or
shares
just-
for asset swap?
Just ethics, based on the ethical standards.
I think standard 1A he violated just through the law, and also I would say standard 3B fair dealing. I would say it's just not fair to the clients that he's doing this illegal, unethical shares for asset swap to get past the regulatory ceiling.
Yeah.
What is your take on Locandi's executive ignorance, malfeasance, lack of effort once they came over, once they were recruited? They found out, okay, this is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
From step one to wherever point this all came up.
Mm-hmm.
How would the two of you address that in terms of an overall solution?
I think it would be best to inform supervisors on really how they should make sure that their subordinates actually follow the rules. And because McBride is the CIO, I believe, and he doesn't try to look into it whatsoever. He just lets him do it because of his reputation. So I think it would be very important to have training on.
Thank you.
Yeah,